Thank you. So we are NeoCarbon and we capture carbon at scale with cooling towers. So what's the problem? Right now, humanity is emitting 51 gigatons of CO2 annually. Of course, we have to cut emissions, so there's no way around this. But there are certain industries where we just can't cut emissions, and this CO2 we have to remove from the atmosphere. This you have especially for aviation or agriculture. So in total, 10 to 20 gigatons need to be removed per year. Right now, there's only one scalable solution that can do this, called direct air capture. The problem is direct air capture is very expensive, with 1,000 euros per ton CO2. So our idea is, okay, what can we do to make direct air capture mass market ready? And that's our idea of NeoCarbon. So we thought of an angle to cut the costs of direct air capture. And this we do by leveraging cooling towers. So how does it work? So you have your industrial plant and you have a cooling tower, let's say to cool down your industrial process, for example, at Bayer, BASF, or BMW. This cooling tower generates a gigantic airflow to cool down your industrial process. And the same is needed for a direct air capture plant, because only one of 2,500 molecules is CO2. So you also need this gigantic airflow. And that's exactly where it goes hand in hand. So we leverage those existing towers, and this means we don't have to build a certain part of the direct air capture plant, this huge fan. And we also don't need to invest in the energy that is required to run those fans. And another advantage, what we have with our approach to current approaches, is that normally you have a molecule of CO2 that you have captured with your sorbent. So that's the first step, which I just explained. In the second step, you have to remove the molecule, the CO2, to reuse your sorbent to capture the next carbon. This you normally do by heating up the sorbent. And another positive advantage of using cooling towers is that they're normally at facilities that have a lot of heat and also a lot of waste heat, which you can leverage. And that's the second advantage of what we have. So we tap into the heat flow of the industrial plant to also cut the costs on the desorption part. So at the entrance, the airflow, and then the desorption, which also be cut. By leveraging those, we can dramatically cut the cost to 100 euros per ton. And first estimates show that there are roughly 300,000 towers within Europe, which we can utilize for our facility. In general, the market is huge. So if we assume the lower end, the 10 gigaton that need to be captured, and a very low price of 100 euros per ton, it's already a 1 trillion market. With the existing infrastructure, we could roughly capture 1 gigaton, so 100 billion equivalent, and by just retrofitting 10% in Europe only, but of course it's also open to the world, it will be already 10 billion euro market just for NeoCarbon. So how does the market look like? So in general, the market is in its early days. So right now we are capturing 9,000 tons of CO2 as humanity, and when we're assuming 10 to 20 gigatons, the market has to grow by a factor of 1 to 2 million. So very, very early. There are a lot of players, of course, just starting like Climeworks, Heirloom, and so on. We think core will be a cost-effective setup, and that's where we focus, but also a setup that is fast to scale. And this is exactly what we are achieving by retrofitting existing infrastructure. So we don't have to build the whole plant, we just have to build a part of the plant. Where we are in terms of timeline, we just got our pre-seed funding from Antler early this year. We also invested a bit of our own money, and we just got into a climate carbon accelerator, but with non-diluted funding. We closed the first industry partnerships. So we are very close to Siemens Energy because I was previously working there. And they help us, especially in building the product, building the hardware and patent it. We made the first hires early this year and closed the first university partnerships, especially, of course, in Germany, in Berlin, where we are based. We have built the first proof of concept in February, March. So we built a small scale cooling tower. It's just 1.50 meter high, and a capturing unit, which is a bit bigger right now. It's like 2 meters high, but we aim for a more modular design, which will be for the next, let's say, 5 months, which we will create in our lab. This will be then more a unit of 0.5 meter by 0.5 meter by 0.5 meter, very modular. So depending on how big your cooling tower is, you have like, let's say, 1 box, or you can have 100 boxes. And this then is something we want to patent later this year, and then going for our seed round by October, then raising 2 to 2.5 million. But we are right now in discussions with a lot of investors, and there might be even an option to invest earlier in June just to scale the tech faster. Then early 2023, it's about commercial piloting. So we are talking now to the first companies and have already the first partners signed where we could install our hardware, then further funding, and then we start into phase 2, where we offer carbon credits, while for now we are more focusing on carbon utilization. That's the team. I'm René. I'm an industrial engineer with background in energy and resource management, worked at Siemens Energy in the field of R&D for large gas turbines, then moved on to the startup scene of Berlin, where I was head of business development at Tink. We raised a bit more than 50 million while I was leading the business development team, but I was also very involved into operations. So I scaled very operative teams from 30 to a bit more than 100 people. My co-founder, Sylvain, has a background in theoretical mathematics and physics, and masters in IT, and another master in innovation management. The last 5 years, he was CTO and co-founder of a startup in Helsinki, which he just exited before he joined me with NeoCarbon. Our first hire is Andrew, Dr. Andrew Chamoux. He is the head of R&D. He has a PhD in chemistry, especially carbon utilization, and then 2 postdocs, and recently worked at Bilfinger before he joined NeoCarbon. And then also to mention Koji. Koji was a senior engineer at Exxon for a bit more than 5 years, especially in the field of cooling towers. And that's the core team. But we also have a strong set of advisors like Ole from Siemens, who's there, the head of additive manufacturing. He's helping us a lot on the building, the hardware and the hardware design, and also on the patent side. And then we have Don, who helped us a lot on the chemistry. Ramona, who's from our first investor from Antler and an advisor. She helps helping us a lot with business strategy. And Adrian, who owns a Carbon Marketplace, which is like our go-to-market start for the credits on a later stage. Yeah, that's it for now. Yeah, feel free to ask me anything or just scan the QR code and yeah, feel free to reach out.
Thanks for the pitch, René. Thanks for sharing. Two pieces of feedback just about the pitch itself. I think you need to tone down a little bit of the technicality of it and be able to bring people into exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it in a more simplified manner. If you're going to initially get investors, and then you can get into the deeper weeds later when you have more technical investors. That would be one. And then the other side would be just to spend a little bit less time on the team, or go through that a bit faster and just focus on the core. Okay. But you do certainly have all the right pieces there of the team to make this scale. The question I had for you right now is to kind of foresee, or to reach your goal of what you want. You've gotten to $100 per gigaton. What's a carbon tax credit cost these days, and what do we need to look at in terms of carbon taxes globally? Is that something that needs to be implemented for businesses to feel the incentive and the drive to start scaling up? So right now, depending on, of course, what kind of market you look, when you check, for example, the ETS market, like the European trading system, then you are right now at 95 or 86 to 95 euros per ton for a carbon credit. But the thing is, it started some years ago with 5 euros per ton. So the increase is quite huge. And like it's a lot about like nature-based solutions.
like planting trees. But more and more regulations will come, especially by the end of 2022, to push more technical solutions. Because right now, the technical solutions are not traded on the official market yet. It's more on the voluntary market, and there very different prices are achieved. For example, Microsoft for Climeworks, they paid $700 per ton, and Heirloom just got from Stripe $2,000 per ton. So it differs a lot, but we think that we can even compete with nature-based solutions by leveraging cooling towers, and especially the waste heat and the airflow. Does this answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my question.
Okay.
Next question for you before I turn it over to the rest of the panel would be, what's the competitive advantage or the unfair advantage that you guys have? What will make you the winner or one of the big winners in the carbon capture market?
So the advantage is definitely, first of all, that there is no real competition, because the market is like a blue ocean. Like, it's not fighting for shares. It's just, it has to grow like crazy. Our advantage by leveraging existing infrastructure, first of all, that's a thing not many companies are doing. So there we have early on a cost advantage against a lot of other solutions. And then we have a very strong team. Like, Sylvain had a startup before, which he exited. I was leading big teams and already raising quite some money. So I think these are our core advantages, what we have against other players.
Yeah, you definitely have a great team. Gabriel, Martin, do you have questions for Renee?
Martin, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I can. Thanks. So definitely kudos to the team and a nice team there. One thing, so how do you monetize this? So who pays for this? Do the government pay for the initial building, or do you envision to monetize it through the green certificates and later on carbon capturing incentives?
Mm-hmm. So for the first part, like the first year, 1.5 years, we go for carbon utilization. So this means we have identified 18 industries where we are now in contact with 170 companies, so quite a lot. We capture carbon on their roof and directly put it back in their industrial process and offer them the carbon for a lower price. Normally, those industries that have CO2 as an input, they buy, let's say, dirty carbon from Linde or Air Liquide, and they have a lot of costs when it comes to transport, which we will not have. So we can be competitive on the utilization and especially for low volumes. That's why vertical farming, for example, will be one of our first pilot plants. And then later, we will offer carbon credits when we have sequestration partner that puts the carbon back into the ground. But this is then stage 2.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And what are the limitations of the system currently? So can it be built upon any cooling tower before you do this modularity aspect to it, or where can you build it at the moment? What are the parameters that a thing needs to have for you to be able to retrofit it on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right now, the first model was for us more, it was real build hardware. So it was for us more, can we build something that doesn't interact crazy with the cooling tower and still captures carbon in an efficient way? The modular approach is more for the scalability, but we can go to very, very low volumes. For example, for the vertical farming, we are now talking to a company that just needs 3 tons of CO2. And this is what we would like to capture just with 1 unit. So we want to go very, very low when it comes to industries.
What's your average customer value going to be like for something like this? What is an average factory, an average corporate run?
So an average cooling tower in general, what we've been looking at with the 300,000, this is more, that could more capture 3,000 tons. So imagine for this use case for the vertical farm, just tons, so factor of 1,000 between, we would need thousands of our 1,000 of our modules. So yeah, that's the range. So we try to be as adaptable to whatever need which is out there.
Okay, understood. It could provide a problem for the sales team in the future on focus.
Go ahead.
But any other questions from Martin or Gabriel?
Yes, I did have a question. I kind of agree on the feedback that you gave, Matt, about the pitch. I think you went very quickly, Renee, at the beginning on the solution. So I wanted to clarify something. My question is, I understand that you're, let's say, piggybacking on the existing equipment to lower the price. That's very clear. But is there any proprietary tech? Because you didn't mention it, and then you very briefly said the word patent. And then when Matt asked you about the unfair advantage or the defensibility, you didn't mention a proprietary anyway, tech. You know what I'm saying? Is there one? I want to know.
So we are right now in the process of getting a patent, but it's not finalized yet. So that's why it's still work in progress. But we also are quite young. So we just started this, like on the slide, in January. So that's why it's still work in progress. But we are quite optimistic, especially after the first feedback which we got from Siemens, that there are definitely very, very high chances to get this patent soon.
And do you want to tell us in a few, I'm not sure we have much time left, but do you want to tell us what it's on exactly, the proprietary tech?
So it's more the design of the hardware component and how it's like the different elements of the hardware we create, like the capturing unit itself. So it's not so much the adapter to have it about various industries, but more how it exactly the cube looks and how the material is coded on there. So, but maybe this we can continue in a more technical conversation, and I'm more than happy to share a sketch with you.
For sure. No, but that does make sense. It's really the design of and the way it works. Okay, no, that makes sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.